Howdy Neighbors, David here. And today on Boondock Stallions, we're going to be taking a look at the Batman, Joker, and how they're part of the same universe, and how the Batman is going to be set up kind of like the movie Se7ven. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about what we see very first in the Batman trailer. And that is Paul Dano as the Riddler, wearing his green jacket, his mask, and his glasses, which I'll delve more into later on in the video. So first things first, they changed Edward Nygma's name to Edward Nashton, just like they did in the New 52. And I think that the reason they did that in the movie, or at least the reason I hope they did that in this movie, is because they're trying to avoid any of the cringeworthy scenes that came out of Batman Forever, where Batman and Alfred are sitting there putting all the riddles together and coming up with the code, and they're all like, M-R-E, or Mr. E. And Alfred, what's another word for a mystery? Enigma, sir. Mr. Enigma. Edward Nygma. Alfred, I figured it out. I know who the Riddler is. I'm the world's greatest detective. And it seems to me that they're trying to avoid that whole thing happening again. And so, the reason I brought that up is because I think that another name change, and this is where my Joker crossover comes into play, because I know we've seen the Thomas and Martha Wayne murder scene done to death. To death. To death. No pun intended. But if we use the Joker as the starting point, as the origin story for this, the Batman movie, then we've got a pretty good solid start. Now, name changes are very, very important in my theory, because that's pretty much what set me off in the first place. So what if Selina Kyle's name isn't Selina Kyle? It's an alias. And the only reason that I think that it's an alias is because of who was allowed to audition for this role. Tessa Thompson, Lupita Nyong'o, and Zazie Beetz all auditioned for the role of Catwoman in the Batman. And it seems curious to me that they would even let Zazie Beetz audition for the role of Catwoman, seeing as how she was just in Joker, and they're trying to promote that this movie isn't part of that same universe as much they can, which is why I think it is part of that same universe. So they let her audition, she didn't get the role, and then they told us about it anyways for some weird reason, and that is where my knowledge of Batman comics and detective skills came into play. So the reason I think that Zazie Beetz was allowed to play or audition for the movie is because she was auditioning for the adult version of her character's daughter from Joker. Now, her daughter's name in that movie was Gigi Dumond, but that could be her real name, and Selina Kyle is the fake made-up name for her. Now, why would you change her name from Gigi Dumond to Selina Kyle? Well, her mother, Sophie, was scared. You see, one night, the crazy loner neighbor was found in her apartment, sitting there in the dark. No words, no explanation, says he had a bad day, and then just leaves. Next day, he's live on television blowing the brains out of a famous talk show host, and she's scared. She feels like maybe he's got some weird connection, and packs up her bags and leaves. That's what I would have done. I've seen it in movies 100 times. And so my thoughts were that she would have changed her daughter's name to protect her. And as the actress Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman is playing not Catwoman, but more of a cat burglar, it does line up that this character might not have driver's license, social security card, birth certificate, all the legal things you would need to necessitate an actual life, because Selina Kyle isn't her real name, and due to whatever fear her mother put into her, she just kept it, ran with it, and maybe her mom died or was murdered in the streets of Gotham, because it is Gotham after all, and that would explain her absence. And that is really my only linking theory to put Joker and the Batman in the same universe. And then I found a few other things that might actually lead up to it. First of all, there's Douglas Hodge, who is the actor who played Alfred in Joker, and Andy Serkis, who's playing Alfred in the Batman. Two different actors, but if you're familiar with Andy Serkis's work, i.e. Supreme Leader Snoke, or Caesar or Gollum, you would know that he's a chameleon and could in fact be playing a 12 to 15-year older version of this Alfred from that movie. And doing it this way would be a nice way to keep the Joker out of this Batman story. That way, the Joker's in the past, it's been done, it was a pre-Batman situation, and it wouldn't affect the older Batman, older Bruce Wayne. That way, the Robert Pattinson's trilogy would be free to tackle other bigger villains, which brings me back to Paul Dano as the Riddler. So, Paul Dano's Riddler looks a little odd, and he acts very Riddler-esque. And now, so director Tim Miller has talked about how he's been inspired by movies like Chinatown and Se7ven, and how they're gritty detective movies, and that's how he's putting this together. And when he said that, I looked at the preview for the Batman, and it looks a lot like what's going on in Se7ven. Now, in Se7ven, Kevin Spacey plays a serial killer called John Doe, who is murdering people based on the 7 deadly sins. And what Brad Pitt, the young detective on the case, doesn't realize is that he is playing into the killer's trap. The killer needs 7 kills, and by the end of it, the detective finds out that the killer himself is the number 6 victim, Envy, and that Brad Pitt's detective character is the number 7, Wrath. And so, seeing that, it looks like Paul Dano's Riddler is leaving clues to give Batman more and more information. He even calls him his secret friend, and in the end scene says, "You're a part of this too." And Batman asks, "How am I a part of this?" And he says, "You'll see." So the Riddler really feels like he and the Batman are kindred spirits of some kind, and I think that he could be part of the Court of Owls. Now, if you're familiar with the Court of Owls or not, they are basically the Illuminati of the Batman universe. I'm most familiar with them through Gotham, and in Gotham, you find out that the Court of Owls was being run by Ra's al Ghul, was a big front to control everything in Gotham. They are the richest, the elite, the most powerful, top people in Gotham running everything, and that they were in fact responsible for the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne, and they were shaping and molding young Bruce Wayne to grow into the League of Assassins, and he would replace Ra's al Ghul as the Demon's Head, but obviously Bruce rejects this theory and becomes the Batman, yada yada yada. Long story short, the Court of Owls has assassins called Talons. Talons are taken from a young age and raised and trained to be the best of the assassins. And Paul Dano's mask looks very much like one of the Talons masks from the comics, only it's been stripped away of all of its little metal endowments and whatnot, and he threw his glasses on over it, kind of maybe in defiance of the court, and maybe he's trying to expose everything that they did to Batman and how they're the ones who are responsible for the corruption in Gotham that led up to, say, the creation of the Joker in the first place, and how that movement was responsible for the death of the Waynes, and how all these little moving parts are what is shaping Gotham into what it's going to be. Now, we're very early. We're year 2 for Batman, so he's not where he's supposed to be, and technically, if they're following 7, he's supposed to fail. He's walking into a trap. Maybe the Riddler intends to be arrested, to be caught, to be exposed, but through all of his crimes, he has exposed the greater conspiracy around the Batman, giving him way to the Court of Owls. And I think that Batman's going to fail and be angry, and what we see at the very end, where he beats that guy down mercilessly to the ground, is him being broken. Riddler has beaten him and exposed all of these lies. He thought Joe Chill was the one responsible for killing his parents, but he doesn't realize that Joe Chill is a product of the environment created by the Court of Owls. And so, bingo, bango, bongo, he's pissed, and he's going to get the Court of Owls, and he's vengeance. He's mad. He's no longer justice. He is no longer the knight. He is vengeance. And it looks like that's going to be his story arc for the next 2 movies. And it'll, you know, there's said to be 6 villains in all. And I mean, off the top of my head, I know we've got the Penguin, we've got Catwoman, we've got Carmine Falcone, and we've got the Riddler, obviously. So that's 4, and we get 2 more. Could be anybody. And if the Joker is in the movie and just somewhere in the background, like there's a picture or a newspaper clipping, it doesn't actually have to be Joaquin Phoenix. It can just be a scene from the movie in a newspaper article in the background, just to let us know that this is in the same universe. That's my theory. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you haven't already, please, please, please give this video a like, a subscribe, be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes.